world have grown stronger, not weaker, but the autocrats of the world have grown weaker, not stronger. The president references to negative expectations to intimidate public and to create an unfavorable picture of the future. In his speech, he describes the Russian-Ukrainian conflict as the largest land war in Europe since World War II. He equates the international situation with a horrible historical episode attempting to affect the public attitude.
The most traceable tactic in Trump's statements following the talks is seduction, a variation of charm. He repeatedly thanked President Putin for every point in the progress that was made during negotiations. Thank you very much. I appreciated President Putin's phone call afterwards to thank me. President Putin, I want to thank you again for joining me for these important discussions. Donald Trump used the charm method to gain the public trust and reach the US goals without forcing them.
We revived Joe Biden and Donald Trump's speech manipulations during the presidential debates in 2020. Biden consistently judges and criticizes his opponent to make him feel inadequate and powerless. Therefore, it is an example of coercion tactic. My response is Trump, is xenophobic, but not because he shut down access from China. And we're in circumstances where the president thus far and still has no comprehensive plan. The brightest example of coercion appears when Joe Biden interrupts Trump multiple times with the phrase, "shut up," although it is considered impolite.
Donald Trump defends himself by using sharp expressions in response. We can't lock ourselves up in basement like Joe does. He has the ability to lock himself up. Addressing to the opponent only by the name, he does not show proper respect, thereby undermines Biden's authority. The survey was conducted. It included 5 questions that are presented in the pie chart on the slide. The first question allowed us to find out that 66.7% of the voters had politics at school or university as a discipline. Attempting to collect data on students' interest in this field, we got such results. 86.3% voters voted for yes, or rather yes. The survey revealed that despite the fact that more than half of the respondents, 68.4%, are aware of speech manipulations, 62.7% of the voters just occasionally pay attention to the usage of such tactics, while 20% seem to never notice them.
Touching upon the last question, the opinions almost evenly divided into 3 sections, but with a narrow majority of the option I haven't thought about it. This detects the fact that students can be misled by politicians as they cannot distinguish the patterns in their speech. The usage of diverse tactics and speech manipulations depends on a specific situation and the spokesman's objectives. In the process of research, the patterns were identified that allow to draw a conclusion. Despite the fact that Joe Biden and Donald Trump opt for polar opposite methods, some similarities in the application of linguistic manipulations can be noted as usage of coercion tactics.
Both the analysis of president's speeches and the survey raised an issue of the necessity to inform people, especially the most vulnerable members of the society, students, on linguistic manipulations to ensure that they are not affected by hidden intentions of the policy-making circles. Thank you for your attention. We appreciate your questions.
Спасибо. Скажите, а на каком основании, по какому критерию речи выбирали, который анализировали?
Мы выбирали, смотрели количество используемых манипуляций, так как...
Ну, вообще первично-то отобрали вы речь как? Первые попавшиеся или что? Какая логика в этом была?
Нет, мы просто просмотрели некоторое количество речей. Не везде используются такие манипуляции. Мы выбрали самые яркие примеры.
Имейте в виду, что если вы как бы делаете общую статистику, да, то брать надо как бы все подряд, да, а те, где вы нашли манипуляции, могут служить в качестве примеров только, если вы сами выбирали на глаз. Да,
мы только начали изучение, и в будущем,
ну да, ну вообще имейте в виду, что там надо, да, то есть так нельзя, так это я беру, это я не беру, у вас должен быть какой-то критерий, да, отбора, любой, но он какой-то должен быть.
Да. Будет больше статей обязательно.
Спасибо. Так, и дальше у нас лекция на фактике идут с трансграничным анализом политической речи. Так, и Байден.
Dear colleagues and guests, we're ready to greet you here today. Our topic is a cross-border analysis of political speech, Justin Trudeau and Joe Biden's rhetorical differences.
The description of the language of politics is becoming increasingly relevant in the context of globalization, characteristic by intensive development of not only international economic factors, but also political factors. There is the emergence of new research in the field of political linguistics, the appeal of researchers to new aspects of the study of the language of politics. The intensive development of political technologies, the increasing role of mass media contribute to increasing public attention to the theory and practice of political communication.
So our tasks are to compare the American version of English with Canadian English in linguistic aspects such as spelling, vocabulary, and pronunciation. Also to identify differences in English language variants in linguistic aspects in order to improve cross-cultural communication within the political discourse.
The theoretical significance of the study consists in the possibility of further use of the results when working with English texts in the media, in identifying and overcoming difficulties in translating vocabulary, in understanding foreign language speech by ear. The practical significance lies in the possibility of further application of the identified differences between the two variants of the English language when searching for information in English language sources, as well as in understanding the speech of foreign politicians.
So Canadian English is a mixture of American and British English, to which is added a good portion of French, the language of the Indians, as well as stable expressions formed by the inhabitants of Canada, which are used only in this country. By the way, the vocabulary is called Canadisms, lexical and semantic variants of words that are not used anywhere else except Canada. It was L.G. Popova who invented the definition of Canadisms and studied them. W. Alice also studied the differences between Canadian and American English in terms of pronunciation. She has concluded that Canadians mostly speak with an American coloring.
Taking into account the results, the study has revealed vocabulary and spelling differences in the Canadian and American versions of the English language. Considering the differences and similarities between these two variations of English, it is important to mention that the study has revealed several of both of them differences. First of all, Canadians tend to use British English spellings, while Americans so not. Secondly, Canadisms that exist in Canadian English. Examples: Survivity Canadian is a Canadian word for American paper napkin, which is a French borrowing. Another French borrowing is toque in Canadian English that means winter hat in American English. There are many more examples of the kind.
Speaking of similarities, the pronunciation of Canadians is not much different from the pronunciation of Americans, and in most cases it is complicated to determine whether a person is from the US or Canada.
Biden and Trudeau's rhetorical differences and similarities. Speaking of Joe Biden and Justin Trudeau's rhetorical differences and similarities, it is significant to mention that both leaders use concepts of challenge of time, unity, and democracy, which can be noted from their speeches.
Considering their differences, Joe Biden mostly uses American vocabulary, while Justin Trudeau uses French borrowings and Canadisms. Moreover, Joe Biden wants to be perceived as man for the people, meaning that he understands the issues of the US people and solves them, making the country better for the nation, while Trudeau emphasizes nice guy attitude, making himself appear to be close to his voters. He wants to be perceived as kind and understanding by the nation. Joe Biden's rhetoric speech analysis. Here we have some quotes that represent the concepts that politics use. Man for the people concept is resembled by the phrase, "This is where we set in motion the most extraordinary experiment of self-government the world has ever known," with three simple words: we the people, Biden 2023. Challenge of the time concept is resembled by the phrase, "My fellow Americans, we're facing a defining moment, an inflection point." The unity concept is portrayed by the phrase, "And we must speak as a country, as a whole, and say there is no place for voter intimidation or political violence in America, whether it's directed at Democrats or Republicans. No place, period." Biden 2022.
Speaking of Justin Trudeau's rhetoric speech, first of all, it's a nice guy attitude concept, the conviction that politics doesn't have to be negative and personal to be successful. Tonight, my very good friends, we prove that. Trudeau 2020. Second one is unity concept. Leadership is about bringing people of all different perspectives together. Trudeau 2022. And the last one is democracy concept. This election has confirmed that our democracy and our institutions remain strong. I want you to know that we will stand up for it and work for it every single day. Trudeau 2023. Thus, we can conclude that American and Canadian are really just variants of the same English language. There are more similarities than differences between them, especially where speech sounds educated people of the language of politics is used. The reasons for most of the discrepancies in the peculiarities of the historical and cultural development of these countries, the variety of local and regional idioms, and stable expressions.
Thank you
Ну, у меня тоже такой же вопрос. Вы по какому критерию тоже отбирали материал?
Относительно новый, чтобы не устаревший.
Ну, вот вы какой-то критерий все равно вводили, вот эту речь беру, эту не беру, на основании чего?
На основании концепций, которые мы представляли.
То есть вы сначала изучали какие-то разные речи, а потом
Да.
что-то выкидывали?
Да, мы сначала смотрели каждую речь, рассматривали, чтобы было именно про демократию, про единство.
Вот, ну по тематике.
Да,
по критерии у вас
тематике.
тематические.
Да.
Да, спасибо, понятно. Так, и наша последняя Булдакова с историей межкультурной коммуникации русских языков. Я думаю, что, наверное, у нас таковые будет, да?
Она? Все нормально?
Очень плохо, конечно, видно, но что есть.
Hello, dear colleagues. My name is Miklukho-Maklaya, and the topic of today's report is history of intercultural communication between Russians and Spaniards. This topic is relevant because a good understanding of countries such as Spain and Russia allows for a more complete coverage of linguistic features, which in turn contribute to a more effective understanding and learning of the languages. The history, knowledge, and culture of these countries also allowed one to delve into the intricacies of Russian and Spanish. The aim of the study is to identify the main differences and similarities of intercultural communication between Spain and Russia in the period from 15th to 21st century. Objectives of the study is to analyze and compare the cultural and historical development of the two countries under study, as well as to study language differences. Object of the study, the history of intercultural communication between Russians and Spaniards. And the subject of the study is linguistic and cultural communication between Russia and Spain. So I suggest to start with the historical development of countries. Let's consider how the relationship between Russia and Spain originated. Russian-Spain relations date back to the late 15th, early 16th centuries.
but long before direct contacts between the two countries began. Both countries were included in the system of European relations, and although contacts were occasional, they were inevitable. In the late 15th and early 16th centuries, both countries experienced major changes and acquired a new role in the system of international relations, which led to an increase in the countries' interest in each other. In the absence of direct communication with Spain, Russia had been in constant contact with the Holy Roman Empire in the late 15th century. Its ambassadors were well aware of the situation in Spain, and from time to time the Spanish theme was heard during their stay in Moscow. Turning to the origins of Russian-Spanish ties communication, researchers emphasize the importance of trade contacts when Russian people captured Crimean titles sold at slave markets were freed by the Spaniards. There were also contacts during the great geographical discoveries. All this led to intercultural communication and the influence of languages of each other. Although the relationship between Russia and Spain has been fleeting, some words have come into our speech from the Spanish language. These words need no translation. It's, for example, guitar, seno, tobacco, banana. Another interesting feature is that there is no strict word order in both languages. For example, ya está bien or ya está bien. Another example is ya estás bien or ya estás bien. The principles of conjugation and use of verbs in sentences in Spanish are the same as in Russian. For example, cantar, cantó, cantas, canta, cantamos, cantas, cantan. To sum it up, I would like to say that in the conditions of information and social mobility of the Russian-speaking population of Spain, first of all, young people are actively involved in international, humanitarian, educational, and business projects, which plays an important positive role in the development of global dialogue of cultures. And what about Russian young people? They choose Spanish to study because it's spoken by most of Latin America, and it's a relatively easy language to understand. So, thanks.
Хорошо, спасибо, все, мы остались свободно. Так, у нас здесь, наверное, все. Так, я думаю, что здесь у нас, в общем, все. Коллеги, мы всех прослушали. 21 человек у нас выступил с разнообразными докладами. Считаю, что у нас все удалось, и все очень там хорошо и неплохо. Да?
Большое вам спасибо.
Вам спасибо всем за участие. Вот, долго, но, в общем, были интересные моменты. Да? Все,
до свидания.
Счастливо.
До свидания.